My name is Rachel Murphy, and this is my biographical presentation. My mentor's name is Curtis Martin, and I received Curtis's contact information from my professor during class. I contacted Curtis by phone, and we set up a time, place, and date to meet up. Curtis is from Isadora, Missouri, and Curtis informed me that Isadora is no longer on the map, but the way he explained it was Isadora is between Sheridan, Missouri, and Grant City, Missouri. A few fun facts about Curtis is that you will always find him with a bottle of Mountain Dew in his hand or a cup of black coffee, which this was very true at every single meeting we had. He always had either a bottle of Mountain Dew in his hand or a cup of black coffee, which always made me laugh every single time I saw him. Curtis's favorite quote is "Live long and prosper." He's a huge Star Trek fan, and this actually inspired the gift that I gave to him. I took a piece of wood and my dad helped me burn the quote, "Live long and prosper," into the wood so that Curtis could hang it in his house. And I actually included a letter to Curtis just saying how much I loved the experience. And I included all of my favorite stories that he shared with me and all of the lessons that he taught me. My experience, I really knew that I was going to enjoy the experience. I'm a gerontology major, so I was really excited to meet Curtis. I honestly didn't think though that he would really teach me any like good lessons. I just kind of figured that it would just kind of be a hangout session and that we would just share stories and I would ask uncomfortable questions. But I was completely wrong. I learned a few lessons from Curtis. This sounds kind of cheesy, but the main lesson that he taught me was to not take life too seriously and to laugh at yourself when you make mistakes. That we're all human and we all mess up, and we only get one life, so we might as well enjoy it. The main thing that I noticed about Curtis is that he is the most non-judgmental person I've ever met. Sadly, I'm a pretty judgmental person, not on purpose, that's just how I am. And I'll kind of go more into detail later on in my presentation on why he is so non-judgmental. Curtis's experience, the way he explained it to me was that he really enjoyed it and that he really would like to do it again. The main thing that he said that he liked doing was making a difference in my life. He said that he really enjoyed watching me from our first meeting being super shy towards him to our last, which was like, me hugging him and saying that I was going to miss him and me giving him his gift. And he just said that that was his favorite part about this whole experience was just making a difference in my life. So Curtis had a pretty normal childhood growing up. Really, the only thing that set his family apart was the fact that both of Curtis's parents were deaf. So Curtis and his two brothers kind of were the translators for his parents. And like I said, Curtis had two brothers. He has one older brother and one younger brother. He doesn't really see or talk to his older brother much anymore and hasn't for years. But him and his younger brother are still super close. They're like best friends. They see each other every day. And like most kids growing up, Curtis played a lot of sports. The main sport being basketball. And a fun story that he shared with me at our first meeting was that his parents had like their own like reserved spot, like unofficial reserve spot in the bleachers at his games, and people just kind of knew not to sit there because that was where Curtis's parents sat. After high school, Curtis traveled a lot. He really didn't travel anywhere far, just kind of to different cities and towns throughout Missouri. And this was actually the time that Curtis started living at a place called Poverty Point. And the way Curtis explained Poverty Point to me was it was just kind of like a big campground. And Curtis saw a lot living at Poverty Point. He witnessed people do hard drugs right in front of him. And he explained that Poverty Point was kind of the place where he learned not to judge people, that that he witnessed a lot of people do hard drugs in front of him, and this was kind of at the spot where he learned not to judge people and that we're all going through different stuff. Some people are going through a hard time and they're working on getting out of that hard time, and others are just in a hard time and they're staying there. But he said that this was kind of the point in his life where he learned not to judge people and that we're all human and we all go through things. At this point in his life, after he kind of got on his feet and moved out of Poverty Point, he actually met and married his first wife, and they had two kids together. And Curtis said that the day that his kids were born was the best days of his life. And after he had kids, they just became his whole heart and his whole life. And that he really worked hard his whole life to give his kids the best life that they could have. Curtis and his first wife sat down one day and just had a talk, and basically just told each other they had grown apart from each other. And after 14 years, Curtis and his first wife decided to get a divorce. And this was really hard on Curtis and his wife's kids. He said that they were kind of upset and mad at first, but like all kids, they just have to kind of move on and get over it. But he is still super close with his kids, and he gets along just fine with his first wife when they do talk, which is rare. Curtis, shortly after his divorce, met his second wife, Martha, and Curtis and Martha actually dated in high school. So they just kind of like rekindled their relationship and got married in 1994, and they're still together to this day. Martha had she had two kids from her previous marriage, and Curtis had two kids from his previous marriage as well. And Curtis and Martha had one child together. Curtis said this is kind of at the point in his life where he became very financially stable. He had fun money, and he also began working on the board of education. He said his favorite part of working on the board of education was the meetings when people would come and share their different opinions and stories. And he just thought some of them were bizarre, but some of them were actually good points, and some of the stories would make him laugh. This was also a hard time in Curtis's life. He actually lost his son at the age of 21. And Curtis said that this was kind of a dark time in his life because he was really upset and mad at the fact that his son had passed away in a car accident just up the road from his house. And it was just a really dark time for Curtis. Curtis has been retired for 1 year, and he actually decided to retire a year early because he, quote, was tired of working. Curtis worked as a janitor at a high school. And a funny story is Curtis was the only janitor at the high school, so he was pretty close with all of the kids. And actually, a group of kids from the high school got him like 20 to 30 cases of Mountain Dew. And he said that all of the cases were gone in just a few months. So that kind of tells you how much Mountain Dew he actually drinks. Um, Curtis actually now volunteers at the Wesley Center, which is actually where we had our meetings, and he volunteers as the maintenance man. And at our first meeting, he showed me around the Wesley Center because I had never been there, and it was just really cool seeing like the pride and happiness on his face, showing me all this stuff that he's kind of fixed up, and you could tell that he just is really likes what he does. Which brings us to present day. Curtis, like I said, spends his time volunteering at the Wesley Center, but he also spends a lot of time with his wife and his grandkids. He said his grandkids are his whole life now, and he actually has a great grandkid coming next month, so he's very excited about that. And Curtis works on old computers with his younger brother as well. Pretty much every meeting we had He always was running a few minutes late because he said that he was just too caught up in working on the computers with his brother. Curtis also helps his son with his trapping business and works on houses during the warmer months. And yeah, he just has a lot of free time and he really likes spending it with his family. Moving on to connections, I wanted to start off with the kind of different groups that I put Curtis in, starting off with selective optimization. Optimization is the engagement in behaviors that will enrich one's life and help people successfully. That's from a lecture done by Dimmitt in 2020. And Curtis really keeps his mind sharp by working on computers with his brother, like I said earlier. And he keeps physically healthy by working on houses and working in the trapping business with his son. In Newgart's personality changes, this was from a online learning done in 2020. I put Curtis into the integrated group because he's very active, he's high functioning, he's capable of doing absolutely everything on his own. And I put him into the reorganizer group as well because Curtis has kind of reorganized his life from, working full time every single day, and now he's kind of transitioned it into, volunteering and kind of doing things that he loves and spending time with his family. Holland's theory of occupational choice. This is from the same online reading from 2020. And I put Curtis into the realistic category for mechanical skills because Curtis likes to work with machines and like computers, and he works with different objects and tools. Moving on to marriage, like I said earlier, Curtis was his first marriage lasted for almost 14 years, and they just ended up growing apart and divorcing. In a lecture done by Dimmitt in 2020, she said that one of the bigger causes of divorce is that couples just kind of grow apart from each other. And in the same lecture done by Dimmitt in 2020, she talked about the three parts to marital love, which are intimacy, commitment, and passion. And when I asked Curtis what he would describe his marriage now, as he said that he would say the two bigger ones is commitment and passion, that they don't really have a lot of intimacy, not for any particular reason. They still love each other, they just don't get intimate that often. And Curtis also told me that he has no plans to divorce his wife, but if they were to ever get divorced, that he would most likely not remarry. Memory wise, like I've said, Curtis really tries to keep his mind sharp and running by working on computers. And something that I find absolutely crazy is that Curtis wakes up at 5 a.m. every single day to have what he calls his quiet time, and he reads for 2 hours every single day just to keep his mind running and keep it sharp, and also just to have his quiet time in the morning. Health wise, Curtis said that he doesn't really worry that much about his physical health, that he's always been a pretty healthy guy. He mostly worries about mental health, just, he went through that really dark time when his son passed away, and he has um, his family kind of has had some struggles with mental health. His son that passed away actually suffered from schizophrenia. Um, and he also just worries about just, forgetting things as he gets older. Spirituality. Curtis attends church every Sunday, and Curtis explained to me that this is when he feels his absolute happiest is when he is in church. Curtis has made a lot of friends through church, and in a lecture done by Dimmitt in 2020, she actually explained that one of the bigger reasons why older adults attend church is the social aspect of it. In an article done by Dillon and Wink in 2008, they explained that religion has been significantly related to the well being of older adults, and they kind of have more positive relations with others, and they are more involved socially, and they're more involved in the community. And Curtis said that he would have never been able to even volunteer at the Wesley Center if it wasn't for the church. Wisdom. When we talked about wisdom, Curtis said that he knows he isn't perfect, that he has flaws, that his flaws are just what makes him who he is and what makes him human. And in a lecture done by Dimmitt in 2020, she actually said that a big part of wisdom is recognizing that you are flawed and that you are not perfect. And Curtis has gone through a lot of in his life. He's had a lot of low lows and a lot of high highs, but he has a lot of life experience. Work-wise, Curtis worked many jobs throughout his life, whether it being a janitor or a maintenance man or working on houses. He's had a lot of jobs throughout his life, and in a lecture done by Dimmitt in 2020, she actually stated that most people move careers 5 to 7 times throughout their life, and Curtis definitely lived up to that. Like I said, Curtis retired a year early and now does volunteer work. And in that same lecture done by Dimmitt, she said that a lot of adults, once they retire, they actually get part time jobs because, you go from working full time 5 days a week to just kind of sitting in your house. And a lot of people don't like that. So they get part time jobs just to keep them occupied. And I read a lot about the lifespan rainbow, and I put Curtis into the declaration stage because, he is retired, but he still technically works or volunteers. And Curtis is kind of starting his mentorship, not only by mentoring me, but he's also kind of, mentoring his kids on, different things throughout their households. And, he helps them with advice and stuff to do through their house. And I got that information from Kavanaugh and Blanchard Field's online reading in chapter 12. Lastly, death and dying. Curtis and his wife actually both have their end of life plans done. They really didn't want their kids to have to worry about anything if something were to happen unexpectedly. And Curtis told me that he has really accepted death, that he knows that he's going to die, that everyone is going to die. So he just decided that he needs to accept it. But he did say that sometimes he doesn't understand why people are taken so early, like his son, that he does kind of get mad and upset. But at the end of the day, he has accepted it and he knows that it's going to happen one day. For the family dinner, I had a lot more fun than I expected to. I didn't think that it was going to be as fun as it was, and I definitely didn't think that I was going to laugh as much as I did. I had so much fun watching my mentor and all the other mentors just have so much fun, and it just like warmed my heart watching them like play the game, and especially during the music part, like seeing all like their eyes light up when hearing a song that they haven't heard in like years. For the family dinner, I made lemon bars, and I actually made lemon bars for the first time and tried them for the first time. Wasn't the biggest fan of the taste, but Curtis really liked them, so that's good. And I also made my favorite snack, which is chocolate covered pretzels, and those were pretty good as well. Overall, I just had a lot of fun watching all of my classmates and their mentors laugh and just meeting all my other classmates' mentors was really fun. And here are my references, and that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.